You know what time it is, folks. That's right. It's time for the Friday Free Flow. This is Doc Rio right here, coming to you live, or actually not live. This is pre-recorded because I'm doing this for the Friday Free Flow. I know before I was talking about doing some live stuff for the Friday Free Flow, but with all the stuff that's going on, it's easier for me to recap as fast as I can by putting together stuff in different lights and aspects. Like, for instance, this particular project. This is another case study. Calling this one Radio Station. Actually, I probably changed it a little bit more because it has to do with a company, a network, a small network, small market network station, Western small market network station that is looking at smaller market radio stations that are for sale, independent radio stations that are for sale, and is looking to add another to their network. And so, in particular, this particular assignment looks at a couple of things. One, it looks at the market value for a small market radio station. It looks at the actual aspects of the company that's about to purchase it, a little bit of background about the company, not a lot of it. I mean, I can give you a little hint. Imagine you are a controller. I'm going to be the controller. I'm a controller at a small market radio station, and the CEO has come to me with this information about this particular radio station he wants to buy. And specifically, he wants to buy this particular radio station for $3.5 million. Now, right now, the radio station the cash flow is about 500 grand, and the debt for the radio station is about 250 grand. So it's about a 1-to-1 ratio, which is where it should be. But not just that. Is that the right? Yeah, that's the right ratio. 1-to-1 ratio, where it should be. But at the same time, the station itself will only allow, the owners of the station will only allow the our station to purchase this radio station if we make an exclusive offer. So that's what makes this a little bit more challenging, because only thing we get to see, we don't get to see all the books. Only thing we get to see is a balance sheet. And so as I go through the balance sheet, I look at a few things. First off, the current assets, cash. We want to know what the cash is and the marketable securities. And that's about $27,000 this year. Now, last year was about $29,000, so it's a $2,000 drop. All right. The accounts receivable was $18,000 last year, but we've lost. This particular company has $6,000 less, which is $12,000 this year. So last year it was $18,000 in accounts receivable. This year we got a lot less, and that means that's a lot less advertising sales. So prepaid expenses, of course, they're going to probably be the same, which they are, $15,000 for each year. Prepaid expenses are going to include a lot of things like insurance, legal fees, things that, pretty much legal fees in this sense, legal fees and things that you may need in advance that you're paying a retainer for and receiving services on the back end. Then you have, for the total current assets, it says about $54,000. Last year was $62,000. So when you look at that, you see it's about, an $8,000 difference. That's the $2,000 from the cash and marketable securities, and about $6,000 less in accounts receivable. Now, let's look at some of the fixed assets here. And when we talk about fixed assets, we talk about property. We talk about the production plant. We talk about equipment. We talk about all these other things minus vehicles, vehicles minus all these things that will have some kind of depreciation. All right. Now, it doesn't list that the vehicles are in here, but I know that vehicles are a fixed asset because not only do they pretty much stay fixed as a part of the company assets if you buy it through the company, but it also depreciates in value over time instead of like other assets which are cash assets and can be moved around. What's on hand, what's liquidable, and that's what cash assets are. It's what's liquidable versus what can be liquidated, but is pretty much stationary. You're probably not going to move it. It's not your cash flow. That's what I want to make sure you all understand. Fixed assets are not your cash flow. Some of us still are having problems laying that in our mind right, including I've had problems with that as well. But when I look at overall budgets, I tend to get a better sense of things. And that's easier for me. When I look at personal budgets, not so much, because everybody's personal budgets are different, including mine. And mine rotates depending on what I'm doing, what I'm investing in, because part of my personal budget goes back into my business budget. So where people say pay yourself, I'm paying myself by investing back in myself, instead of just paying myself to go get some Zuzus and Wham Whams. Wow, I said that. Oh, mom's rubbing off. Anyway, now then we'll keep going into intangible assets. It's about $5,000 in intangible assets, and the total assets are $94,000 and $107,000 last year. So when you talk about 5,000 intangible assets, the intangible assets stayed around stayed the same price last year as well. So actually, let me give you a better definition of cash flows here, because I want to make sure that it's really understood here. People don't get what I mean by intangible assets, and I just wanted to make sure, which I haven't gotten to the page yet, but intangible assets, just to give you a brief idea, there are things like trademarks, patents, copyrights, all those three things, my favorite. But there's also another category, and I wanted to make sure of this because I thought it was in here, but it can have its own separate category, and that's talking about goodwill. Goodwill, also prepaid expenses such as taxes, interest, and insurance. See, insurance actually goes under intangible assets, and fixed assets stick with buildings, vehicles, equipment, and all those things. So just to make sure that's clearly understood. And goodwill. Goodwill, the reason why it can be in a separate area is because goodwill basically is part of how we are with the public. I want to say, our ability, it actually says, I think it says, it says public record. So yeah, how we are with the public. How is the public's attitude towards us, and how we do things in our community, or how the radio station is as far as how they do things in community, which kills me, because if their intangible assets were 5,000 last year and they're 5,000 this year, they haven't really increased any goodwill. And that kind of worries me, because that could be some of the reason why they're not getting more advertising, because the more goodwill you encourage, the more you market to your community. I believe that the more you market to your community, the more reach you will have, and the more reach you have, the more advertising you will be able to sell. So that's just me. So it looks like they're lacking in the goodwill in the community, and because this network that I am the controller for, quote unquote, that is, the network that I am being the controller for actually has several small market radio stations, and we probably specialize. I mean, it doesn't say that, but we probably specialize in providing goodwill to our communities, especially since it says in here that we've had offers from other companies, and the reason why we won't take those offers is because we really want to keep this a family-based, family-oriented, small market company. So that's just to give you a little bit of insight on assets. Now let's get into liabilities. What were the liabilities? All right. Now the liabilities, as we see, the current liabilities are $18,000, which is $2,000 from last year. So that's actually good. We've saved $2,000, and we paid off $2,000 in debt. And when we talk about that's accounts payable debt, or we have $2,000 less of what we have to pay out as far as accounts payable. Now, notes payable. We had 4,000 notes last year. Now we have 5,000 in notes that we need to pay off. Income taxes payable. Well, it's about the same as last year, which was 11,000. Total current liabilities, 34,000 and 36,000. So we're only 2,000 shy on our liabilities, less on our liabilities. So we pay down $2,000. Long-term debt, it was $50,000. That means, it was $60,000 last year, but it is now $50,000. That means we actually paid off $10,000 worth of long-term debt. So when you look at, we have $2,000 worth less of accounts payable plus $10,000 worth of debt paid off. That actually puts us at $12,000 less, of what, showing that we're able to pay off $12,000 worth of debt through either our liability, our cash, which you see it's $2,000 less, and or any of the accounts payable cash that we have coming in. Accounts receivable that we have coming in. Now, next is let me see, total current liabilities 34, long-term debt. We did that. Total liabilities 84,000, 96,000 was last year. So we're actually looking good with a $12,000 decrease in debt. Owner's equity, common stock, 7,000 was the value of the common stock this year. Last year was 8,000. So we lost, the actual station lost $1,000 worth of value of the stock. Retained earnings, when we talk about owner's equity, owner basically either sold off some share or whatever to keep the business going, whatever the owner may have done. I don't know. I can't look at the books. They could be cooking the books for all I know. So this balance sheet could just be a mock balance sheet. But from this balance sheet, that's what I can say. And understand that in all actuality, the FCC and the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, actually holds CEOs liable for financial reports. And I mean to the point of they can get jail time for lying on financial reports. You've heard of it before where a CEO has cooked the books and then later on it becomes some Ponzi scheme that they've turned it into because they're getting money to save the company and not getting money to increase shareholders' returns. So they're telling shareholders they're going to get a return on this if they put more money in, but that money is only doing to keep the business afloat because the business is in debt and it's negative cash flow. So this is how some of these Ponzi schemes or some of these corporations have done to basically save their company by killing their cash flow or gaining cash flow from outside resources. And you've probably seen it on American Greed. There are some companies on American Greed or people with American Greed who started all these Ponzi schemes in the same light. Sold stuff that they didn't have to 5 and 6 and 7 people. Told them, I remember this wine one I was looking for, and he sold the same wine bottle to like 10 people. But because it takes so long, because he's quote unquote holding the wine for them so that it ages longer, you find people find out later when they were wanting to get the wine to come home so they can age it themselves. So that was just something I saw on American Greed about a year or so ago. So that just brings me back to that. What happens when, stock values change and how CEOs, it's important for CEOs to stay on top of their numbers and report the proper numbers. So more likely this person's not cooking the books, but I'm just saying, I don't see the books, so I don't know what's really going on. Now, then we go into retained earnings, $3,000 every year, both years are $3,000. That means they're retaining this amount every year coming in. At least $3,000 is coming in every year. Total owner's equity, $10,000. Last year was $11,000. So it's still only $1,000. Total liabilities and owner's equity. Now, as far as the balance sheet should go, this should be even to the total assets. Total assets and total liabilities, owner's equity should be the same price across the board. If they're not the same price across the board, this sheet isn't balancing. For those who don't know anything about balance sheets, it's got to match. If these two aren't matching, then something's wrong. The numbers are being cooked or whatever. or the numbers were added wrong. Somebody made a mistake somewhere. So the total liabilities and owner's equity, as I said, is the same, $94,000 for this year, $107,000 last year. After examining all this, looking at the balance sheet, looking at the debt ratios and the growth of assets ratio, using different formulas that are listed in this book to try to figure that out, what I've figured out is that this is a viable company. This is a viable radio station. And because we are a radio network, bringing them in for $3.5 million will definitely benefit our station. But I know some people are like, $3.5 million, but didn't you say the cash flow is $500,000 and the debt is $250,000? So why are you going to give them, if you only got a $250,000 cash flow, why are you going to give them, what, 5 times more? 5 times more than what you've, was that 6 times? 7 times more, 7 times more, because it's 500,000, 3.5 billion. Yes, 7 times more of what the company's worth. Well, that's because, like I said, we're a radio network. So first off, because this company continues to retain earnings of $3,000, plus the company is, I want to say, positive $250,000 when it comes to cash flow, it's easy to understand that every year this company is going to continue to make money. All right. And if this company continues to make money, buying this company for 7 times its fee means that within year 8 to 10, I'll be recouping a profit. Now, at a bigger profit. So as long as I'm below the 8 to 10 year mark to get returns on my investment, wow. It takes about 7 years to get returns on my investment minimum. So let's say if I crank up the numbers, let's say once I buy the company, the accounts receivable, I'm able to crank up to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 because I have other stations and we'll be sharing advertising revenue. These are things that you got to look at. And it's in a market that this company doesn't exactly have yet. So I'd be walking into a new market, presenting an established network into a new market, providing more content to the audiences, the listeners out there. And once I am able to increase the circulation of this company, which I don't know what this station's circulation is, but once I'm able to increase the circulation of this station, I'm able to increase the advertising revenue and therefore maybe even recoup my money back in 3 to 5 years. So this is where I see that this company is liable. And I, as a controller, would recommend that this radio station is purchased by this particular radio owner. Now, I'm not saying anybody just randomly coming in and got $3.5 million can come and buy that. It's got to be somebody with a network, with a history in radio, and that could actually benefit from adding to their station by getting into a new market, as well as adding to their station by allowing more advertising revenue to branch out to more sources. And this would be an extra source of advertising revenue. So especially when you talk about local advertising revenue may be a little bit harder to get sometimes, I think, because that means somebody's got to go door to door and knock on those doors. Somebody's got to get out there and say what's going on, and talk to people and get in the faces of people. And, I got to put a little bit of evil eye on, the eye of Horus, for them people who like to give me the evil eye when I'm on camera. Ying, 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 and I'm just joking. But anyway, I like to wear my eye. So with that being said, all in all, that's the gist of what I'm attempting to get across here. I can show you the tables and formulas. I can talk more about the tables and formulas. But, I'm not the best with math. I can see an overall. But when it talks about getting into all these formulas, I'll never be a controller. It's just simple as that. That's not my forte. My forte is woo, communication, positivity. My forte is woo, communication, positivity, consistency, and futuristic. And the reason why I'm going back over those again is because woo means I'm selling. Woo, communication means I'm talking to people. Positivity means I'm making people feel good about what they buy. So I'll be in the advertising department, if anything, if not CEO. That's just the way it's got to be. That's the way I see things. So, with that being said, this entertainment media management student, or what it was called electronic media management student, is signing off. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this Friday Free Flow. I will definitely make sure the Friday Free Write comes out ASAP, but I'm going to post this Friday Free Flow right now on YouTube. This is Doc. I'm out of here. Stay tuned for more Friday Free Flows, case studies, and all this stuff right here on Rio Bucks and Doc Rio TV on YouTube. Talk to you soon. RioBucks.com. Come to the website. I'm out of here. Peace.